Okay, so they're giving us the vertex form. And remember what the vertex form gives us, the coordinates of the vertex, right? Okay, so the coordinates are P comma Q, and so for example, if it said y equals a, let's just put in a number. Let's put in negative 2x plus 5 squared and minus 7. What's the coordinates of the vertex? Plus 5 or negative 5? Negative 5. Because in order to make this a plus, you would have had to change this minus, right? So please don't make that mistake. It's just probably a small mistake on Shakim's part, but he'll figure it out. He's a smart boy. And then Q, you can see Q starts with plus and then it became minus, so okay. So when you're looking at the equation, the Q is what it is, and for the X, the P is opposite, okay? And when A, what is A when you have a maximum? A maximum would look like this. So we'd want that A value less than 0. And when it's a minimum, you'd want that A value positive, okay? And the maximum value is the Q in the vertex. Okay, so this one's max, this one's min. And when it opens up, A is positive, and when it opens down, A is negative. Okay. And the equation of the axis of symmetry is good. X equals P. Always. Ever since grade 6. Okay, sorry about those interruptions, and let's go to the application now. So it looks like they want us to do that same problem from lesson 8. Okay, so this is a projectile problem. Okay, projectile problems is just basically the ball goes up in the air and the ball comes down, and it follows a parabolic path. Okay, so taking a look at this, A value, it's going to open down. Okay, so basically what's going to happen is you're going to have some first quadrant example like this. Ball goes up, ball goes down. Okay, and it's going to have some initial height here. This is like probably the height of the person, or like if it's like a cannon, where the cannon would shoot from. It's your y-intercept. That's when the x value is 0. When time is nothing. It's like the beginning of the experiment, the initial height. And then the ball goes up and the ball comes down, so it hits a max height here, and then this is where, you know, it hits the ground. That's your x-intercept when y is 0. So when the height is 0. Okay, so 3 really important points. Okay, and looks like we're going to try and do this by hand here, algebraically. So it wants us to complete the square. So that's a nice little review for us, completing the square. Okay, so what happens when we complete the square when we have an A value? Good, GCF for the first two only, first two terms. Okay, so let's take that negative 4 out of the first two only, and we get t squared. The negative will switch it, and we'll leave that plus 3 on the outside. You guys okay with that? Sure. Now we're going to complete the square on in here. Okay, complete the square in here. So do you guys remember the pattern for completing the square? What do we do with that b value? Divide by 2, then square. Okay, so we got Negative 12 becomes negative 6, and then we square it to get 36. So this is the thing that we plus and minus. We plus 36 and we minus 36. Okay. So it doesn't change. Good. You're just adding a zero pair. Okay, so we're going to add 36 and subtract 36. Which one do we put first? Good. Now in the highlight is the perfect square. And what value do you use to factor that thing? Good. Okay. I don't know if I should circle that. I'll highlight. Highlight. Okay. And so the thing in the green highlight became all of this t minus 6. Okay. So let's highlight that. And what have we not accounted for yet? This guy, right? Yeah, so before he can come out here, he's got to talk to his date. Remember that? His ex-girlfriend, yeah, the ex. Before you leave the party, you got to talk to your ex. And you're going to change. 36 and 4, negative, negative make positive 144. Okay, and then don't forget about the plus 3 that was already there as well. Oh. And you get negative 4 t minus 6 all squared plus 147. And this is your new formula. Okay, and now from that formula, you can get a vertex, right? Positive 6 and 147. Very nice. So that means the axis of symmetry occurs at x equals 6. And the max or the min happens at 147. Okay, so is it a max or a min? It's a max because it's opening down. That's what this a value tells us here. A less than 0 opens down. And because it's a max, it will be the y value of the vertex, so the q. Okay? So we can fill in C, 147. And we can fill in D, how many seconds it takes to reach that maximum height? 6. And before we do B, let's look at E and F. What was the height of the projectile at the launch? This is the y-intercept. This is where we start, the initial height. So what happens when time is 0? Look at the constant. Very nice. Look at the constant. The constant is what's going to happen when you get time 0. So what happens when time is 0? This term is 0, this term is 0, and then this is, yeah, your y-intercept, which will be 3. meters, because it's asking for a height, right? Determine when the projectile hits the ground. Okay, so let's do B and F. Let's start with B. What is B even asking? Read it. It says find the height when what? So it's giving you an x value. So use your formula and just switch time to 3. So negative 4. 3 minus 6 squared plus 147. If you typed it identical to that in your calculator, you'd get it. If it's a written response, maybe you got to show some steps. So you would do the brackets first. 3 take away 6. And then what do you do after brackets? Bad math. The exponent. Good. So then what's negative 3 squared? Don't say negative 9. Positive 9. That's critical. Some of you might make that mistake on Friday. Don't let it be you. Anytime you square a negative, it will become positive. And then do multiplication. And then we can finally add it. And we get, help me, 111 or something? 111? Okay. So find the height, 111. We got the rest of these. Now the part F, what's part F asking? When it hits the ground, we know that when it hits the ground, it's going to be your, careful, when it hits the ground, it's a x-intercept. How do we find x-intercepts? There's lots of options. Calculator, what would you use? Number 2, zeros. If it's written response, though, you might have to do something else. You could factor, good. What else? Good. Quad formula. I think a lot of you want to go with the quad formula. Okay, and factoring is also an option. The test might say use factoring to find the intercepts. It might say use quad formula to find the intercepts. It might even say use complete the square to find the intercepts, and this one's scary for people. Okay. So determine when the projectile hits the ground to the nearest tenth of a second. So, if it's in the vertex form, it's actually quite easy. If it's in the vertex form. If we're finding an x-intercept, what needs to be 0? Okay. Isolate the term involving t. So that means 147 has to come over here. Change the sign. Continue to isolate. Divide by -4. 147 divided by 4. The negatives will cancel. You get 36.75. Then we have to square root. And now we're into some issues because now we're losing accuracy. We have to keep it like this. Then we square root this on both sides. And you get square root 147 over 2 equals t minus 6. But it's plus or minus, right? Got to sneak that in there. Plus or minus when we square root. Okay, so it's plus or minus the square root of 147 over 2 plus a 6 is t. Yeah, so you would have to type that in your calculator. So that's the vertex form way, which I think a lot of people don't like. But just in case on the test it says use the vertex form to find the intercepts, there's another example of it. The one thing that's difficult is remembering the plus or minus. I even kind of forgot it at the end there. So that's one way. You go plus root 147 divided by 2 plus 6. Or you do a negative root 147 divided by 2 plus a 6. And you should get 2 answers. Of those 2 answers, which one would you take? You'd have to take the positive one, right? You wouldn't be like falling into a negative time, right? So be mindful of what your answers are actually giving you. Let's use probably an easier way to do it would just be the quad formula. And quad formula, if you guys remember, is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. What do they call b squared minus 4ac? Discriminant, good. If the discriminant is positive, you have 2 answers, good. If the discriminant is 0, you have 1 answer. And if the discriminant is negative, you have, make sure you guys know that, okay? 3 or 4 questions on Friday on that. Okay, so can I use my vertex form for this quad formula? What form do I use? The standard, right? The one that we're always used to from factoring. So we got to go back to the original up there. Up here in the original. Okay, so what's the a value? And the b? And the c. Okay, so let me just jot those down. A is negative 4. B is, I lost it there, 48. and C is 3. Zoom back in for Carl. And Carl, do you want to help me out with this? What goes first? And is it negative? Okay, good. Negative B. And right now you can see B is positive. So you got to put in a negative B, which is negative 48. What if B was negative? It would jump to positive. Good. Plus or minus. Now, B squared would be 48 times 48. It's 2304. And then we're going to go minus. Now we got to do, what's 4 times A times C? A and C is negative 12 times 4 is 48. So negative 48. All over 2 times negative 4. Okay. Inside there, 2304 plus 48 would be 2352. All over negative 8. Okay, how to punch that in the calculator? Invisible brackets, right? So do this. That 2352, like I don't even want to mess with it. You could probably like divide it by 4 and stuff, but yeah, but don't worry about it. Okay, so in here, type that into your calculator, hit answer, and then divide it by negative 8, okay? Those invisible brackets. So I'll just give you what the key has. Negative 0.1, and the other one is 12.1. We have to reject the negative one. Do you agree? You can't have negative time. So it hits the ground 12.1 seconds. Please double check that you can get 12.1 on your calculator using this expression. Type in the top. I'm assuming you're going to use the plus, not the minus. So negative 48 plus the square root of 2352 divided by negative 8. Or it might be the negative, depending on how the negatives cancel. It's the negative one, right? Because then it would divide by a negative. So check it out, see if you can get them. Okay, any questions before we move on? There's a lot going on here. I would study this question, like I would redo this question over and over again until I had it. Because it has everything. For the word problems anyway. Okay? Practice it doing different ways. Try it with the vertex form, try it with the quad formula. I don't know if this thing can factor. Probably not. Okay. This one. Put a star on it, this next page. I think you'll see something identical to this. Okay, rancher, a farmer, whatever. He's got 300 meters of fencing. So that's all the material he has. He's got 300 meters with which to form a rectangular corral. So a box for his animals. One of whose sides is an existing wall which does not require fencing. Okay, so you have this wall, maybe it's like attached to the shed or something, I don't know. You have this wall that's already there. It's pre-existing. And you're going to have to build a rectangle using the 300 meters. It says if 2 of the sides of the rectangle are each x, so which ones would those be? The ones running vertically or horizontally? So here and here, the 2 have to be the same, right? X and x. And then you have this. Okay. So what is this right here? What is that length? If in total you have 300. In total you have 300. What's this question mark going to be? How do you know that? You have 300, you have to use x, and then you have to use x again. So how much would you have left over for this part? 300 is the total, and you have to take away 2x. Okay, so that's question mark. Okay, so let me erase the question mark, and you have these two here that are the same. Any questions on that? So how to find the area of this pen? How to find the area? Length times width. I'll use a dot, not to confuse. So area would be x times 300 minus 2x. Multiply through with distribution, and you got 300x minus 2x squared. This is what they wanted us to show. Here's the area formula. So what's different about the area formula that they gave me and then mine down here? What's different? What did I do different? Just this left part? So what does it mean, A bracket x? So area depends on x. So it depends on what this vertical, whatever you make this, it's going to make the area. The area completely depends on what you decide this length is going to be. So depending on what you decide this length to be, you're going to have different areas. And I'm assuming they're going to want a maximum area. These questions are always like, right here. You're always trying to maximize or minimize. So like for economics, it would be like minimum cost, or maximum profit. So it's always a min or a max problem. Okay. So it says use completing the square to determine the max. Okay. So to do completing the square, it has to look normal. Let me reorder it. Where did it go? Okay, let me just reorder. So there's your area function, which depends on x. And I put it in the right order. You always have to have the squared term first. Now recall what we did with an a value. What do we do with that a value? Take out minus 2 only. What does 300 become? Good. Now we complete the square on 150. So what do we do with the 150? So it becomes 75, and then we have to square 75. We're completing the square. We do half of b and then square it. So I got this 5625. So divide by 2 and then square. Okay, so what do we do with that value? Plus it and minus it. So plus 5625 and minus 5625. The stuff in the highlight becomes the perfect square. And what do we use for the perfect square? Half of the b value. Remember that? So it becomes x minus 75 all squared. And what's out of the bracket? Go see the ex-girlfriend or boyfriend, and then you come out here. So 5625 and 2, the negatives cancel. 11,250. Good. Okay. So using the max, or the complete the square, what vertex do we have? In the equation, it says minus 75, so the x value, or the p value, is positive 75. Okay. Talked about that twice now. If this is positive, it says it's negative in the equation. And then the q value for the vertex is 11,250. Good. Okay. So this q, 11,250, is the max. Okay. And I think the unit is what? Meters? Okay. So that is the max value, 11,250. That's the area. It's the maximum area. And then it says, we'll state the dimensions of the rectangle, which gives the maximum area. So we would have 75 here. What's happening? Glitching, eh? 75 here. And then that long piece was 300 minus 2 75s, right? Which is 150. Okay, so the length times the width is 75 times 150. So those are the dimensions. 75 by 150. Any questions on that before I move on? You'll say that again? Are you talking about right here? You always take out the A value if it's there. If A is 1, you just get at her because it's like you're starting here in the blue. So if there's an A value that's not 1, you factor it out of the first two only. So I recommend that you guys go and study some completing the square, yeah? Yeah, so you'll have to be able to do, you'll have to be able to complete the square to state the vertex. So this 2b, that skill is on the written response. It's right there, this 2b. You have to be able to do that. Okay? It won't be like this question, but it'll just give you a random quadratic and use the completing the square to find the vertex. Okay? So no surprises, it's there. Okay, the other thing that's there is the quad formula. So you have to use the quad formula. So that means you're going to go back into the quad formula notes and you're going to look at it and you're going to study it and you're going to do it properly, especially the finishing part at the end where you have to like simplify it, simplify the radical and then like bring it down to lowest terms. All right. One more to do and then I will stop lecturing. Okay, math teacher question, blah, blah, blah. Okay, it says find two numbers which differ by 8 and whose product is a minimum. So if x represents the smaller number, so smaller number equals x. And if they differ by 8, what would the bigger number be? And don't say y. Good. X plus 8. They differ by 8. If they gave you that x is the smaller number. No, because then that would be the smaller. Okay. Then it says write a quadratic expression in x for the product of the two numbers. So multiply these two things, you get x times x plus 8, and you get x squared plus 8x. Now this is where, Emily, you don't have to factor anything out. Okay, so the function f of x is x squared plus 8x. So this one's very simple. What's half of 8? Square it. Okay. So I'll write it down over here on the side. B is 8, so we cut it in half. You get 4. Square 4, you get 16. So we're gonna add 16. We're gonna subtract 16 because we don't want to change the formula. This thing is x plus 4 squared, and we still have that minus 16 hanging out. Vertex is negative 4 comma negative 16. Good. So if we look at this quadratic formula or a quadratic equation, what's the a value on it? So it opens up. Okay, so that negative 16 is a minimum. That vertex is a minimum. Determine the numbers and the minimum product. Well, if the minimum product is negative 16, minimum equals negative 16 when x equals negative 4. So the small number is negative 4. x small, and x big would be negative 4 plus 8, which is 4. So 4 and minus 4 are the two values. If you do enough of those problems, you might be able to generate a rule. Yep. Okay, so you'll see about a page of multiple choice that looks like this page, with this rectangle, these math teacher problems. Okay, so this homework will be in your multiple choice. Oh, we still have one more? Oh my gosh. Or is this extensions? No. No, 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 no. We're not doing this. This is not on your test. Not. Constant 4 won't be on your test. No. Okay, I would say number 1, and you could even do it with your calculator as well to get practice, but you should be doing this. This assignment is by hand. Less than 8 is the one by calculator. So 1 for sure. You guys might not like 2 because it has fractions. But okay, so 1 and 3 for sure. Where's my pen? Come on. 1 and 3. And 9. Don't worry about that. Okay, so okay, 1, 3, and 9 if you want to just do the bare minimum. Okay? Do all of it if you want to be a master.